Are now. Isn't he amazing? One more round of applause for Blake Davidson. I look so forward to coming here on Sunday mornings. I hope you do too. Remember when you were a little kid and they made you go to Sunday school? Nobody has to make us. We want to be here, don't we? Yes, we do. So I'm excited to introduce our speaker today, giving Rev Deb a break. Ramona Harper is here with us today. I want to tell you a little bit about her. She has a brief bio. She is a licensed Unity teacher since 2014, a certified Unity prayer chaplain trainer. She's also licensed and ordained as a practitioner and minister in the Divine Science Church organization. She is a graduate of the Inner Visions Institute for Spiritual Development. Ramona co-facilitates Explorers on Sunday mornings here. If you are not aware, that class meets at 10 o'clock, yes. And Deb teaches and Ramona teaches, and they occasionally have guest speakers. And that meets in Myrtle Hall before the service at 10 o'clock. So with all of that, let's give a proud Unity welcome to Ramona Harper.
Thank you. Good morning, Unity of Dallas. And to those of you who are joining us online, it's an honor and a divine opportunity to present the Sunday lesson this morning, and I've titled it, There's More Where That Came From, because I will be talking about abundance and prosperity, and I think I've got an egg up in the room. And hopefully I'll be sharing some new ideas about how we can think and grow richer in all areas of our lives. You know, here lately, I've been thinking a lot about infinity. Yes, for some reason, I've been thinking about the infinite world in which we live. No, I haven't been watching too many reruns of Star Trek on a mission to boldly go where no one has gone before. I'm not a Trekkie. I know we've got some Trekkies here today, though. And a spaceship is still a great appeal. But maybe I've been thinking about infinity because we are living at a time when we look at the human condition and the world appears to be so constricted and contracted, doesn't it? And yet the opposite is true about the universe because it's eternally expanding and evolving. And my thoughts about infinity inevitably led me to acknowledge the infinite abundance of the universe. Infinite abundance is an answer to any idea that man is limited by what we see happening in the world today, or limited in his capacity to evolve as a spiritual being. And if you need proof, I just want you to consider these facts. Did you know that when we look at the galaxies and the stars, there are approximately 2 trillion galaxies, and each one has billions of stars. And as we revolve around the sun, which is what we're doing right now, at this very moment, we are revolving around the sun. We live on just one galaxy, planet Earth, that astronomers call the Milky Way. And our galaxy alone has an estimated 100 to 400 billion stars. The grains of sand on all the beaches and deserts of the earth are virtually impossible to count. In the plant and animal kingdoms alone, the scientists say that there are more than 8.7 million different species of plants and animals, many of which haven't even been discovered yet. And in our own physical bodies, the atoms in our bodies are said to be some 7 octillion. And I believe that to the mathematicians to try to figure out just how many that is. We're made up of a whole lot of atoms. And everything we see is made up of atomic building blocks that are infinite and infinitely complex. It was Ernest Holmes, founder of Science of Mind organization, who said, "The stars in the heavens are beyond counting. The leaves on the trees continue to multiply. Nature is lavish, abundant, and extravagant." So there's something about the universe that is vast, that cannot be counted, but connects all of life with life's resources. And the Bible teaches that infinite abundance is man's birthright because man is the manifestation and the expression of a divine mind. Now, one of my favorite biblical scriptures about abundance and prosperity are the beautiful verses in Luke 12, verses 27 and 28. "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these." This scripture tells us that there is an abundance of good in the universe, and that if the lily, which is part of the plant kingdom and develops into its fullness by instinct, and has been given everything it needs to grow into the beautiful flower that it is, because the lily doesn't get in the way by blocking its unfoldment, it naturally flowers into its perfection. And so this same potentiality and this same possibility for unfoldment through spiritual awakening can happen for mankind. But we, unlike the lily, we have divine consciousness, and so we can consciously choose to expand and to grow through faith or not. Luke goes on to say in that same verse, "If then God so clothed the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith?" So the universe is generous. It provides what we need. Infinite abundance is a principle that we can believe and live by to access an endless stream of what we need. We only have to look at the physical universe if we still need some proof. And this infinite abundance includes material needs like our finances, material wealth, but infinite abundance also provides an endless supply of good in all areas of our lives, whether it's more love, more joy, more personal growth, more peace of mind, more guidance and direction. The infinite abundance of spirit provides for our needs as our divine birthright, as sons and daughters of the divine. So then, how do we wind up in the human dilemma of a belief in lack, in limitation? How does this happen? Where does this come from? When we look upon the physical universe and we see so much abundance, when we see infinity all around us. Where does the belief in not having enough or not being enough come from when the universe literally shouts at us that the universe is infinite and that we must be too, because we are a divine part of the universe? So to answer these questions, let's just stop to consider the source of our abundance, okay? First, let's look at a few basics, going back to the basics today. Let's look at a few basics about mankind. So we are spirits having a human experience, and actually we are not just spiritual beings, we are spirit being, and we live between two worlds. One world is out there. This is the physical world, the material world of people, places, and things. The other world is in here. Our mental world of thoughts and emotions. The two worlds, that is the visible world and the invisible world, they meet up through our consciousness. And what is consciousness? Consciousness is our mind. It is our soul. Consciousness is the sum of all of our ideas and our beliefs, our thoughts and feelings, what we've learned, our knowledge, and our life experiences. This is our consciousness, and it is infinite because there's no limit to what we can think or feel. Consciousness is infinite. And when we joined our two worlds with a positive consciousness, and in the most elevated sense, the Christ consciousness, this was the same consciousness of Jesus of Nazareth, we open ourselves to access the abundance that we have inherited as the manifestation and an expression of the mind of God. And in this higher consciousness, there is infinite abundance. There's also infinite potential, infinite possibility, infinite mercy and grace for the human condition. There's infinite divine love to help us. There's infinite generosity of the Spirit for its offspring. Therefore, for every human need, what we need is found where? In our consciousness. It's not found in the outer world. It is sourced from our inner world. And so our needs and desires, they are not fulfilled by outer circumstances, though many times we think they are. Our needs and desires, they are fulfilled by the divine consciousness that we are born into. Our abundance comes to us by right of consciousness. Our financial health, having enough money, the prosperity of good health, our unique talents and creativity, the loving relationships in our lives, and lifelong personal growth and development, the source of fullness and fulfillment in all aspects of living are found within our very own infinite consciousness through our inner world of thought and belief. Because our consciousness is part of an infinite divine mind. And there are spiritual laws that affirm the principles of abundance and prosperity that are ours for the asking and the taking, such as the law of supply, the law of increase, the law of mind action, among many others that one of our speakers talked about last month, and she spoke from the Dynamic Laws of Prosperity by Catherine Ponder. It was this book. So let's look at a story that was told by Ponder. Catherine Ponder was a unity minister, by the way. Let's take a look at one of the stories from this well-known book just to see how spiritual law actually works for abundant living. So this is the story. Catherine Ponder writes that she once talked with a young woman who seemed to have everything against her. She was stricken with paralysis when her drinking, gambling, non-working husband deserted her, leaving her with several children to support and educate. Though the woman had a roof over her head, the house was heavily mortgaged, and although her husband was required by a court order to provide a small monthly allowance just for the children, it wasn't enough to meet their needs. However, every time Catherine visited this woman, who for many months was bedridden, later confined to a wheelchair, the woman always joyously reported about new channels of supply that are opened up to her. On one visit, the woman said that she'd been given enough canned food to last for months, and money had appeared when she needed clothes from relatives who lived in a distant state. She said that her own medical expenses were being met by a friend who was overseas, and every financial need was miraculously being met. Fresh paint had even arrived for the outside of the house, and a neighbor was busily repainting it. Catherine Ponder asked her, what was her prosperity secret? And how has she been able to meet every bill on time? Well, the woman was in a wheelchair without ample or steady income. The woman said that one prayer had been her great source of strength or supply. Whenever a financial need was near, she would quietly meditate over and over on the promised 46th Psalm. The 46th Psalm says, "Be still and know that I am." One day the mortgage was due. The woman was short in the amount of exactly $40. She didn't have a cent of the money, so she quietly began to think on those words, "Be still and know that I am God at work on this situation right now." Around noon that day, a sense of peace came over her about the situation. She completed her prayer and meditation time. About an hour later, as she was being served lunch by a relative, a neighbor stopped by who placed some money in her hand. He said, "Our children's Sunday school class was thinking about you, and there was some extra money in the treasury, and we decided to share it with you." The amount he handed the woman was $40. This woman, recognizing divine mind as the source of her abundant supply, had proven that this source will never fail her, even under extreme conditions of ill health, marital disappointment, and financial uncertainty. Of course, her great desire was to become self-supporting and financially independent of gifts from relatives and friends and neighbors. We know that faith without works is dead. And it was certain that the woman would eventually realize this as she persevered in prosperity thinking. The woman began to walk again for the first time in several years, and she was able to work too. This story proves to us that through a positive consciousness of faith, our needs, they are known. They are known and taken care of by right of our divine inheritance. Our needs are always met, no matter the conditions that we might be facing at the time. But without a focus on the state of our consciousness about a matter, there can be no lasting change or success in achieving our goals. It all begins within, and we have everything within us that we need. Our good is not dependent then, not dependent on external circumstances, but on our beliefs and attitudes about what is possible. It's about faith. It is said that when our consciousness is in alignment with the consciousness of abundance, there is nothing that can prevent the manifestation of our good, because there are no obstacles. Now, there's a metaphysical concept that I would like to share with you this morning, because I think it's essential to understanding the source of our prosperity. It's the spiritual concept of substance. Now, substance, I think, is not an easy concept to teach or to learn, but I'm going to give it a try, okay? Let's give it a try. So we've been talking about living between two worlds, right? Our mind, consciousness is the link, the connecting link between the formed world and the unformed world. Our consciousness is the link between the visible and the invisible. God is the formless. God is substance. God's substance is not matter, because matter is already formed. God's substance is the mind essence beyond matter and form. And man, through his thoughts and words, can shape and produce things in the outer world using this substance or mind essence. This substance is passive, and it's just waiting to be formed and brought into visibility. In other words, we use our consciousness, our minds, to access divine substance, the unformed, to create our formed world. This substance is infinite, and it is filled with life, intelligence, and the ability to take visible form. Substance takes form through our consciousness. So our outer world is like the congealed energy of our thoughts that have precipitated substance, which is spiritual energy, into matter, into form. Let's see what Charles Fillmore had to say about substance. Substance is a spiritual essence, the living energy out of which everything is made. Divine substance is man's supply. Out of it, he forms whatever he will according to his faith and understanding. So it is our consciousness that directs substance to turn it into our supply. This substance or spiritual energy, it's always available to us, and it's never depleted by the way we use our minds. But we can choose to forego our power to substance and live in a consciousness of lack and limitation because we have free will. But any form of lack, it's not natural to man's true nature and true identity because we are the offspring of infinite intelligence and infinite abundance. It's our own consciousness that creates the idea of lack. But in reality, there is no lack or limitation in spirit. Let's look at the universe and its infinite nature. The substance is like a spiritual cookie jar that's always filled with cookies. And I brought a cookie jar with me today to demonstrate my point. This is my, if anybody can't see in the back, it says cookies. We have in our possession a veritable cookie jar of spiritual substance at our disposal. And we can draw from the cookie jar whenever we want to and take as much as we want. But only in accordance with our understanding, our desire, and our belief that the cookie jar is always filled, just waiting for us to open the jar and take the spiritual substance of infinite abundance. But we have to feel abundant when we take from the cookie jar. We have to believe that there will always be cookies in the jar of spiritual substance. In truth, it will never be empty. The God of our being is never empty of our good. And there's more where that came from. I think one of the most amazing Bible stories where we can learn about divine abundance and the power to turn substance into form is Jesus' parable about the loaves and fishes. And I've taken it from the Gospel of Matthew, and I will read it to you. It reads, as soon as Jesus heard of the news of the beheading of John the Baptist, he left in a boat to a remote area to be alone. But the crowds heard where he was headed and followed him on foot from many towns. Jesus saw the huge crowd. He stepped from the boat. He had compassion on them and healed their sick. That evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "That isn't necessary. You feed them." "But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. "Bring them here," he said. Then he told the people to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the loaves and fish. He looked up to heaven first, blessed them. Then breaking the loaves and fish into pieces, he gave the bread and loaves to the disciples, who gave it to the people. They all ate as much as they wanted, and afterward the disciples picked 12 baskets of leftovers. About 5,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. So there are many ways to metaphysically interpret this scripture, but for our understanding of substance and supply, we understand that Jesus understood the law of increase so that formless substance was given form. He used the dynamic power of thought to break the bonds of atoms, composing the few loaves of fish and bread, fed 5,000 people. But you know, in truth, there are no miracles. There's only God being God. And I have a personal story, something that happened to me many, many years ago that I'll share with you, but I will never forget it. There was a time when I was short on cash. I just needed a small amount to help me through a particular situation. And I don't even remember what the situation was. But one day I was walking down the street in Miami, Florida, where I was living at the time, and I looked down on the ground, and there was a $20 bill. And that was all I needed. No one was on the street, so there was no one who would have just dropped the bill that I could give it back to. I knew that this was Spirit responding to my needs at that moment. And I'm sure that there are many of you here today who have similar stories to tell. When you needed something, and it seemingly, miraculously appeared. Yes, our faith will always see us through. Because as we read in the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not. So what are some of the spiritual tools that we can use to develop more of a consciousness of abundance? Well, here are a few. Let's begin with the all-important spiritual law of gratitude. The law of gratitude says that our minds are like a great mind magnet that brings more to us of what we are already grateful for. Gratitude keeps us connected to the source of power from which we gather more personal power. There's a consciousness of having in gratitude, and we can manifest more abundance when we give thanks for what we already have. And let's talk about generosity. To live in gratitude also means to live in a spirit of generosity. Eric Butterworth said, if we seem to experience difficulties, it's because we are out of the flow. And one of the most effective ways of getting back in the flow is through giving. Give the thing that you need the most, because life is a boomerang. Some other spiritual tools to grow in a consciousness of prosperity are, well, we can look for the opportunities and possibilities that are all around us. You know, there are always many opportunities around us if we're looking for them. Remembering our divine identity. We are heirs to infinite abundance. Present moment living. Like mindfulness meditation, it shifts our consciousness to the present moment, not what has happened in the past or what might happen in the future, because abundance lies in a here and now consciousness. Journaling. Some people like to journal about the things that they are grateful for. It's always been a great tool for appreciating the abundance in life. We know there are many people who write down the things that they are grateful for at the end of the day in their gratitude journals. Another tool, positive affirmations. These affirmations, they can reprogram our subconscious mind for prosperity thinking. But we have to believe what we're affirming, and we have to say them with feeling. Another is visualization. An abundant life can help us to manifest it because we are picturing ourselves already living in prosperity, like all those vision boards we might have created. And I have another little story to tell about myself. You know, about the beginning of this year, the beginning of this year, I had an idea that I wanted to buy another house. I just wanted a bigger house. I have two little grandsons, and they're bouncing off the walls where I was living. I said, no, I need a little bit more space. So I made up my mind, I'm going to buy another house. I just was cruising around. I was going through neighborhoods. I didn't have any realtor. I was just cruising around. But I stopped at one house. A spirit definitely led me to this house. And I liked the outside of it. I didn't have any real estate agent. I looked at the sign on the sign, for sale sign, and I just called the woman up right there on the spot. And she gave me the key, the lockbox key, that I could just go in the house on my own. So I just went in the house and looked on my own. And when I was there, I said, yes, this is where I'm going to live, where I'm going to live. And this was about January. You know, we did our letters to God. January, I did my letter to God, knowing that I'd get it in 6 months. I put the address to that house on my envelope. Here's my envelope. I live in this house. I've been in there a couple of months now. I never looked at another house. I never even went to look at another. So I'm just showing this to you. Yes, visualization, seeing yourself, picturing yourself, knowing that it is so, claiming your good. This works, and it certainly worked for me. Certainly, Spirit was in my life. Another tool is energy healing. I know many of you like and understand energy healing, like Reiki and other energy healing modalities. They can clear physical and mental energetic blockages that can keep us stuck in lack of limitation. And just being in nature. When we connect with nature, we are surrounded by the abundance of the universe, which reminds us of its infinite resources of beauty and supply. So as I conclude, let us close with the understanding that prosperity is really not about getting abundance. Prosperity is about having the consciousness to attract abundance as heirs of the divine. So let us claim our infinite abundance. And in the inspiring words of the Vulcan, let us make it so that we may live long and prosper. May the force be with us. I'm going to talk there. Okay, all right, I'm there. Okay. For our meditation this morning, we will be saying a prosperity prayer together. They say that the family that prays together stays together, and I'm sure the same thing is true for the spiritual community that prays together. So this prayer is on our screen. It's in 2 slides, so I will be switching to the next one. And there are copies. I made copies of this prayer. They're on the next desk if anyone would like a copy of this prayer when they leave the sanctuary. So let us relax the body. Let's relax. Take a few deep breaths. Be present in this moment. Slow our minds down. Open our hearts. Go within. And now let us pray slowly and with feeling. Words are on the screen. All together, I place myself in the divine flow of prosperity. I place myself in the divine mind of prosperity. I place myself in the divine grace of prosperity. I place myself in the divine path of prosperity. I accept prosperity as a natural occurrence. I see prosperity all around me. I feel prosperity in me. I am one with the prosperous energy of God. I draw prosperity to me. I flow prosperity through me. I share prosperity freely. What I share is returned to me tenfold in an unlimited number of ways. And so it is. Amen.